Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, a U.S. veteran has tried to join Islamic State, according to prosecutors. Also tonight, Syria claims shooting down one of our U.S. drones over Laqeda. And Israel's governing Likud Party and the opposition Zionist Union Party are neck and neck in Israel's general elections, according to current exit polls. We'll have an update on tonight's broadcast. Also tonight, Corey Evan has the latest on a Kraft recall that has metal in your macaroni.
Yeah, I know. Mac and cheese, don't eat it. Kraft say it might have bits of metal in it. I'll give you the details on that. In addition, I've got a trifecta of murder trials in my headlines. Hold on to your AK-47s, gentlemen. Stocks are descending a bit, but soon you could ascend on a lower call to Europe. The family of a man set alight in Long Beach has dropped their suit against the homeless man who burned him. And Super Mario is on his way to your iDevice. I've got details on all that and more in tonight's episode of your conservative news source. The Evan Miller Report starts now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Tuesday, March the 17th. Welcome to the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source on this Tuesday, and thank those who joined me earlier for our special coverage of the Israeli elections right now. And right now, according to exit polls, certain exit polls are still saying that it's still too close to call, though the AP has called it for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We're going to have the latest from the BBC in just a couple minutes on the latest on what is going on in the elections over in Israel right now. And Sackhead Sean will be joining us to apprise what this means for the U.S. at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific, right here on the SHR Media Networks. And it's good to be with you tonight, along with Corey Evan tonight here on the program. But first, we start off with news over in regards to Danish. A U.S. Air Force veteran has been charged with attempting to provide material support to Islamic State militants. Telroy Nathan Webster, 47, of Neptune, New Jersey, allegedly tried to travel to Syria to join the militant group. Prosecutors say that he had been living and working in the Middle East for more than a year before his arrest. According to court documents, allege he traveled to Turkey in an effort to cross into Syria, but he was denied entry at the airport. The charges were announced on Tuesday by U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Loretta Lynch, who is surprisingly running for the U.S. Attorney General. Mr. Pugh is an American citizen who was born and raised in the U.S., prosecutors say. According to a statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Mr. Pugh served as an avionics specialist and mechanic in the U.S. Air Force. After he left the military, he did similar work for several companies in the U.S. and Middle East. In court documents, prosecutors allege that on January the 10th of this year, he flew to Istanbul on a flight from Egypt, where he had been living for about a year. Turkish authorities questioned him upon landing and denied him entry into the country. Mr. Pugh refused to let the authorities search his laptop, and they placed him on a return flight to Egypt the same day. Egyptian officials detained him upon arrival and discovered that many of his electronics appeared to be purposefully damaged. On his mobile phone, they found several photos related to airplanes and one of a machine gun. Stay with the Evan Miller Report on this developing story. We'll continue to bring the latest as it becomes available here on the Evan Miller Report. The Syrian military says it has shot down a U.S. drone near the city of Lakiata, a stronghold of President Bashar al-Assad in northwest Syria. U.S. officials say they are investigating the reports carried by state media. If confirmed, it would be the first time Syrian forces have attacked a U.S. aircraft since the beginning of the coalition strikes against Daesh militants in Iraq and Syria. Syria has not been participating in the raids on Daesh. The state-run Senyan news agency described the unmanned surveillance plane as hostile without giving any further details. In a BBC interview last month, President Assad said, quote, general messages were provided to the Syrians about coalition strikes via a third party. Earlier today, Syrian activists accused government forces of using chlorine in an attack in the northwestern province of Erbil late on Monday. Two groups reported that 3 children were among 6 people killed when the aircraft dropped barreled bombs filled with toxic chemicals on Sarmin. The Syrian army has denied the claim, describing it as propaganda. All right, over to some news out of the UK and an update on a story we've been following here on the program quite frequently. David Cameron says he has accepted an offer to take part in the 7-way television Prime Minister debates at the beginning of April. The Prime Minister previously said he would not participate in a debate after the start of the campaign on March the 30th. But he said the broadcasters had come back with a formal offer for a new format of TV election programs, including one multi-party debate, which he said he had signed on to. Meanwhile, Labour leader Ed Miliband challenged him to agree to a head-to-head debate. Mr. Miliband claimed that the Prime Minister was going to any lengths to avoid debating him and said it was time for him to, quote, face the music. Mr. Cameron said the other parties must accept the new deal or bear the responsibility of the debates not going ahead. Labour has said it still backs the original plan for 3 debates held during the official election campaign. While the Lib Dems welcome Mr. Cameron's statement, the BBC's political correspondent Alex Forsyth said there appeared to be some movement to break the apparent standoff between the parties. After weeks of wrangling between the political parties and the BBC, Sky News, ITV, and Channel 4, all UK television broadcasters, have cast doubt on whether the leaders' debates first held in 2010 will be repeated before the May 7th poll. Today, Cameron said he accepted a deal put forward by the broadcasters to take part in a single debate involving the leaders of the 7 UK parties, as we stated at the start of April. There was a formal offer of a set of television programs, including a televised debate put together by the broadcasters led by the BBC's. As Prime Minister, I accepted that deal in full, he said. The Prime Minister added the other parties have now got to stop running away from this and agree to a debate that the broadcasters have now suggested. If this debate ends up happening, ladies and gentlemen, this will be broadcast on local ITV1 in Britain on April the 2nd. The time is supposed to be announced later on this month. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Corey Evan now, and he has more, the latest update on the Ternaya trial on what happened in court today. Corey, take it away.
Yes, I've got a whole bunch of trials to start off with. I've got Robert Durst. Court papers released today contain new details about the life and arrest of alleged killer Robert Durst, subject of the HBO documentary The Jinx, including that he suffered from a medical condition that requires access to a powerful narcotic for pain. Durst, who has lived in various places, residents as Houston, and described himself as married. Previously published reports said he received an annuity of $3 million a year, his share of New York real estate fortune left by his father. FBI agents arrested him Saturday afternoon in a New Orleans hotel at the behest of LA officials. Police in LA said they had uncovered new evidence linking Durst to the Benedict Canyon slaying in 2000 of Ryder and Susan Berman. On Monday, Durst was charged with 1 count of murder. And as the trial goes forward, I will bring you the latest relevant updates as they become available. The trial of accused Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev on Tuesday was expected to focus on the suspect's arrest following the the day-long lockdown of much of the metropolitan area following the attack that killed 3 people and injured 264. Tsarnaev could be sentenced to death if he is convicted of charges that also include the fatal shooting of a police officer 3 days later. And prosecutors contend he and his older brother carried out the April 15th, 2013 attack. And Missouri is set to execute the convicted killer of a sheriff's deputy on Tuesday over objections from his lawyers, who say a sawmill accident decades ago cost him part of his brain and made him ineligible. Cecil Clayton of Southwest Missouri is scheduled to die by lethal injection after 6 p.m. Central Time at a Missouri state prison. He would be in Missouri this year, and the 10th in the country. Police were called in November 1996 on a complaint that Clayton, who had been arguing with his girlfriend, was trespassing. He shot Barry County Sheriff's Deputy Christopher Cassiter in the head while the officer was in his patrol car. Clayton's attorneys have argued that his intelligence dropped precipitously after a piece of wood was driven into his skull during a sawmill accident in 1972. Surgery was required, and he lost part of his frontal lobe. He also suffers from hallucinations and delusions due to the injury, that according to his attorneys. At trial, Clayton's attorneys argued that the accident left him incapable of deliberating or forming the intent necessary for a finding of first-degree murder. Clayton now does not believe he will be executed, but thinks God will set him can travel the country preaching and singing the gospel, his attorneys said. Oh, man. Do you have to be hallucinating to think that God will set you free from murder? I'm sorry, but this is one of those things that just... we here at the Evan Miller Report are tough on criminals. Let's just put it that way. The U.S. Supreme Court, the 8th Circuit of U.S. Court of Appeals, and U.S. District Court seeking to stay his execution. The Missouri Supreme Court, in a 4-3 decision, found he was not intellectually disabled under state law and denied his petition for a competency hearing. So that's why his lawyers are submitting appeals, Jay. And might I say, hallucinating, thinking that God is going to set you free just so you can sing gospel music when you're guilty of murder, or possibly.
Sounds like a load of ridiculous out of the city of marijuana to me. But
yes, and I'm sure he just got off a flight from there.
Lord knows. That's why we have to. Why you cover these certain stories. That's part of the ridiculous things we have to go through here in the U.S.
I love covering these stories.
Oh yeah, certainly right. All right, Corey Evan with some of the day's national news. That's what's happening today. He'll be back in a couple minutes with the D.C. news. Now off to Israel now, where Israel's governing Likud party and the opposition Zionist Union are neck and neck in Israel's general election, according to exit polls. Estimates by 2 Israeli broadcasters gave both sides 27 seats each in the 120-seat parliament. The consent both would need support from other parties to form a governing coalition. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the vote as a great victory for his Likud party, which is credited with a better result than expected. In a speech to his jubilant supporters in Tel Aviv, he said that this was achieved against all odds. Referring to the Israeli voters, he said, quote, "You are all important to me." He also urged the leaders of what he described as Israel's national camp to create a government without delay. Likud had trailed the center-led Zionist Union Party in opinion polls in the run-up to the poll. However, the centrist-left Zionist Union dismissed what it teamed up spin from Likud as premature. Zenos Herzog, head of the Zionist Union Party, said, quote, "We will wait for the real results. Everything is open. The public wants a change. We have an unbelievable achievement today. What final results are not expected until Wednesday morning." When final results are known, Israel's president will be given the task of forming a government to a party leader who he thinks has the strongest chance of assembling a coalition. Haaretz newspaper quotes President Rivlin as saying only a unity government can prevent the rapid disintegration of Israel's democracy and new elections in the near future. Israel's form of proportional Representation always produces smaller parties and coalition governments, says the BBC's Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowman, who is in Tel Aviv. He also says Mr. Netanyahu's premature declaration of victory was based on his confidence that he had more allies among the smaller parties than Mr. Herzog. Mr. Netanyahu could become Israel's longest-serving leader if he secures that fourth term. Almost 72% of those eligible voted in the election, which ended at 2200 GMT time, which would here in America be at 4 Eastern time. That's 1 Pacific for those of you listening in on the West Coast. The turnout was 4 points higher than the previous election back in 2013. Israel's Channel 1 and Channel 10 both projected 27 seats each for Likud and the Zionist Union Labor Party, while Israel's Channel 2 gave Likud a 1-seat lead with 28 seats. 61 seats are needed in order to secure a majority. The Joint Arab List, an alliance of Israel Arab-dominated parties, has come in third with about 13 seats, according to exit polls. The Arab List, however, has said that it will not take any positions in government. And joining us now to give us some analysis and some opinion on the elections over in Israel is Sackhead Sean of the Sackheads Radio Show. Sean, good evening.
Good to hear from you again, sir.
Hey, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
Corey. How are you, sir?
How's it going?
A pleasure having you on.
Good.
Pleasure having you on, Sean. So, what will you and the Sackheads deem of this Prime Minister's election? Certainly a squeaker of an election, if you could say it in any certain terms. Very close. And for those of you who think the battle's
much closer
with the
than
Prime Minister's election, it's just
too close for comfort, I say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say it's too close for comfort, and it's really too close to wonder what's going to happen down the line. I mean, but listen, as of right now, it landed, and I think in the best way it possibly could for Israel. I think that long term, it will, there'll be a lot of discussion. One of the things you're going to hear in the discussion is how much money was put in from the State Department to the opposition, which is a big story going around right now. You're also going to hear how they rallied, if you will, the Arab vote, which I think it's amazing that nobody's talking about. It's still a country where, you try to get Jews to vote in other countries in the region of the Middle East, and they're not allowed to. But in that country, everybody's allowed to, and I think that alone speaks, how wonderful Israel is. I can't predict the future on this. I wish I could predict the future. I can't. Obviously, I'm a huge Netanyahu supporter. I think he is the best thing for that country, and the best thing for our country in a lot of ways, because he is the voice that often lacks in this country for reason, especially when it comes to Iran and the Middle East.
And
absolutely.
Certainly this is not over by any means, because Israel is known for their coalition governments, and even though the election cycle may be over, they say it sometimes takes up to 2 to 3 months to get a coalition government put together in Israel. And I was watching our partner BBC World News today, and according to their analysts, they say that that the voting bloc was split almost directly right down the middle today. This was a very close election, and you had one of the highest turnouts in Israeli history, and people do come out to vote, and they do the math when it comes to these elections.
Yeah, well, they come out to vote, and they came out to vote on both sides. I think a lot of times when we see this in this country, I think a lot of people who are supporting Netanyahu, I bet you there was a lot of people who didn't go to the polls thinking that it was going to be more of a shoo-in than what it was. In parties to the right. So I think that, we've seen that in this country with certain elections, where either they think they're beat or they think it's not going to be a problem and they don't show up. And, once again, fortunately, it worked out the way it did, because it could have worked out a lot worse.
It certainly could. Corey Evan, you have a question for Sean.
Yes, I'm reading from Haaretz News that Netanyahu has gone so far as to say that if he's elected again, there will be no Palestinian state. What do you have to say about that claim that he's making?
Well, and you know, if you've listened to our show, and you know, I'm from the belief that there shouldn't be a Palestinian state. You know, I at least, you know, unlike what happens in politics in this country, at least you know what you're getting with Netanyahu. He's very straightforward and very honest about it. I happen to think he's right about this. Listen, I don't know if you have a group of, or land, if you will, strip of land that's run by terrorists in Iran, all of a sudden become its own state. And, you know, it does fall within the boundaries of Israel. And I think Israel has gone out of their way, if you will, to try to appease them without giving in to them. And, yeah, I don't think there should be two states. And you know what? Netanyahu, again, he's running on honesty. You know he thinks that. Everyone knows he thinks that. And he had the audacity to come out and say it. Pretty refreshing given the politics we have in our country.
Yeah, it certainly
Absolutely.
is. And despite the closeness of the election and how they're going to have to run that unity government, so to speak over there, really, they seem to get a lot more done in that country than they do here in the U.S. To say the least, and not a lot of people back in Israel either, including our own country. And as you mentioned earlier, the Hill released an article today. The likes of Congressman Adam Kinzinger questioned today whether a nonprofit that received federal grants in the U.S. helped to lobby and unseat President or Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu from office. And of course, there's always the question of President Obama sending his 2012 campaign team over there to support the Zionist Union Labor Party challenger.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how much we meddle in affairs of other. And listen, you think this administration would have learned what happened with Egypt, with the Muslim Brotherhood, and what a disaster that was. But they keep getting their fingers in where it doesn't belong. And, you know, I think when that story really grabs legs and starts running, especially over there, I think you're going to see a different reaction for the Prime Minister's election. Listen, as much as people may not like Netanyahu over there, at least the contingency that came out to vote, a referendum, if you will, I think you're going to see that many more people show up when they find out that the U.S. and U.S. NPOs, nonprofit organizations, were meddling in their affairs. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a firestorm over there, and politically, and I think it's going to cause a big backlash for them.
Well, this certainly doesn't help this administration. Scandal after scandal after scandal. Currently, we have the Secret Service scandal embroiled up again. It seems like the never-ending scandal, and now this turns up. And today marks 6.5 years since we've had President Obama come to office. What happened to the administration of transparency? Certainly not seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, he keeps talking about the most transparent government, but he hasn't done anything to prove it. And you know, when are we going to learn our lesson? That's the best question I can ask right now, and hopefully it'll be soon.
Absolutely. So, before we let you go, you have a charity you're supporting, the Time for a Hero. Why don't you explain a little bit to that audience, to our audience, what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm working with a group called Time for a Hero. It's an awesome nonprofit going on right now, and essentially, all the special forces operator use a specific type of watch when they're in the field. It is not something that's given to them by the military. It's something they come out of pocket for. It's about $130 that they come out of pocket for. So a couple people have gotten together and started a nonprofit to try to raise money. They're already working with the U.S. military to get the okay, and it's actually been okayed. And what they're going to do is try to raise enough to give a watch to every single operator that's in the field and not make them come out of pocket for it. So it's something I'm really, really proud to have my name attached to, and it's something that I've been working pretty hard behind the scenes with them to try to get this thing going, and it's really just starting to launch right now. And if you want to donate, you can go to fundly.com, fundly.com/give-time. And you can donate right there. And I'll tell you what, it's going to a great nonpartisan, no politics involved cause, and it's something that I really just think will make a big difference for those of us to protect our freedoms.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great organization, and nothing better to help and donate to help our troops out. And I believe last time I checked on there, or just checked on there right now, Sean, you have about $490 to raise so far. How much money do you hope to raise? What's your line that you hope to cross? On
the Fundly alone, the Fundly goal over the next 2 months is $10,000. The ultimate goal is upwards of $250,000 to get enough watches. The $10,000 is the first run to see if we can get the first group out. They partner with Casio to get it personalized for the event. So there's a lot of great things being done, but we need to really, really just make it go viral. Do everything you can. And listen, $5, $10, everything helps. And again, it goes to a great cause. No money goes anywhere else but the watches.
All right, sounds great. And I will go ahead and post a link of that up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. Because as Sean said, this is not a partisan or political issue. This is helping our military troops, and donate what you can. Before we let you go, Sean, what's coming up on tomorrow's edition of the Sackheads Radio Show at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here on SHR?
Well, obviously we're going to cover the Israel elections. We're also going to cover the testimony with the White House today, talking about the Secret Service disaster. Definitely going to talk about what happened in Ferguson over the weekend and the arrest of the individual who shot the 2 police officers. And you know us, we always have something up our sleeves, so we'll do what we can to keep you guys entertained.
Absolutely right. Listen to the best comedic and political opinionated duo team known to man. That's the Sackheads Radio Show, Wednesday nights, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. And Sean, before we let you go, understand you are into a little sharing agreement with a friend of ours over in Philly, and you're doing a 1-hour radio show Monday through Friday. Why don't you go ahead and give a quick promo for your program? This is anchored solely by you, not the Sackheads, but tell the audience how they can listen.
Yeah, you listen to me anyhow. You can go to, even if it's not the Sackheads, you can listen through our Spreaker page, or you can go to NJC, out of Philly, and listen live through their website. I'm on Monday through Friday, 12 Eastern their time, so 9 a.m. Pacific. And coming up tomorrow, I had Greg Phillips on today. Coming up tomorrow, I have Tamara Jackson on to talk about an amazing movie project that she's been a part of. And also going to talk about an article that she wrote that she's bringing back to light called The 47 Bodies of Hillary Clinton. It highlights a lot of people who have ended up, sadly, 6 feet under, who've had very close relation with the Clintons, and it's raising a lot of eyebrows. So I'm very excited. That'll be tomorrow morning, 9:20 Pacific, 12:20 on the East.
And will this be simulcast on shrmedia.com or just available on that Philly station?
Yeah, I haven't worked out the simulcast yet. That'll be next week, but it'll be on the Philly station and our Spreaker page.
Okay, that website, one more time for people who want to tune in, who are out of state, out of the Philly area.
Yeah, just Google search WNJC Philadelphia 1360 AM, and it pops up. It's the very, very first one. You can listen right from the main page.
All right, sounds great, Sean. Thanks so much for joining us and giving us some perspective on the Israeli elections and other issues going on here in the U.S. That's Sackhead Sean, everybody, and make sure to tune in to the Sackheads Radio Show, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, Wednesdays, right here on shrmedia.com, right after the Exceptional Conservative Show. Sean, thanks so much. Talk to you later, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. All right, folks, I'm Jason Miller, and you're listening to the Evan Miller Report. And when we come back on the program tonight, we got some D.C. news today, including The White House downplays any chances of a quick Iran deal tonight. Also tonight, Nancy Pelosi has said that she embraces tough questions about Obama's trade agenda. Well, we'll hold our breath when that comes in. The GOP has offered a $3.8 trillion budget that boosts defense and cuts elsewhere. And the U.S. lawmaker who used taxpayer dollars to create his own office, similar to Downton Abbey, has resigned. We have those stories and more, plus Corey Evans' business report, lawsuits across America, and the entertainment report when we return on the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Is radio.
Talk news. Talk news. Radio. Talk news. Talk news. Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
There's a mixed bag on the stock markets here on our business report on the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evans. Jason Miller will be back in just a few moments. But first, the Dow is down 128 points at 17,849, while the NASDAQ is up 7 points at 49.37. The S&P 500 lost 6 points to 2074. Stocks pulled back sharply from Monday's rally, pressured by lower crude oil prices and jitters surrounding the Fed two-day meeting. The S&P slid, and as you know, the Dow had fallen as well as the NASDAQ had fallen a bit before bouncing back. Crude oil was barely hanging on to its level of $43 a barrel as talk of Iranian oil being added to a global supply glut pressured the commodity. Iran's oil minister said on Monday that the country would increase production by 1 million barrels a day if international sanctions are lifted. West Texas Intermediate crude dropped 2% to 43 and a penny a barrel. Stocks have been highly volatile over the past week as Wall Street focused on whether the Fed might remove its patient language from its statement, a move that would set into action a possible rate hike later this year. A statement from the Fed is expected Wednesday afternoon. Housing starts tumbled 17% in February to 897,000, the lowest level in 13 months, and the first time starts were under 1 million since August. Economists had expected 1.05 million starts over the month. Apple was among the best large-cap performers, up 1.2% on reports the tech giant could announce a web TV offering as early as June, according to the Wall Street Journal. The service would feature channels such as ABC, CBS, and Fox, and would reportedly launch in September. Retail fund Macerich rejected a $16 billion bid from shopping mall real estate company Simon Property and adopted a poison poll to go into effect should anyone acquire more than a 10% stake. Macerich dropped 3%, and Simon Property was down 0.35%. Burlington Coat Factory stores popped 2.8% after beating analyst estimates on its top and bottom line after posting a nearly 7% increase in comparable store sales during the fourth quarter. Plug Power shares tumbled 8.2% after the fuel cell maker reported a wider than expected loss in the fourth quarter. And Oracle and Adobe are expected to report earnings after the closing bell on Tuesday. Oracle is expected to report a quarterly earning of 68 cents a share, while Adobe should post 39 cents. Dreaming of a European vacation? It may pay to wait a few years. Europe's biggest budget carrier Ryanair is planning to launch cheap transatlantic flights by 2020. The airline is in talks with manufacturers over a long-haul fleet. If they secure the aircraft, likely provided by Boeing or Airbus, Ryanair plans to offer budget flights to Europe from up to 14 American cities. Tickets would start at about $15, but don't get too excited. You'll end up paying a lot more than that, especially if you tack on baggage fees and reserving your seat ahead of time, which I may end up doing if me and my Jenny end up going to Europe sometime, which I believe London's on our list. And, of course, that's because other no-frills carriers like Ryanair drive profits by charging passengers for services not included in the ticket price, a.k.a. if you go for that price, you'll end up nickeled and dimed.
That's baloney.
Of course,
it don't make any sense.
Yeah, of course, they've been talking about doing this for a long time, and they're not the only one that spotted the opportunity. Norwegian Air launched a low-cost service last May, and there have, of course, been others, like La Compagnie, French airline, that is. They unveiled plans for cheap business flights from New York to London. Of course, at $2,200, it offer undercuts the majors such as American Airlines and Air France by more than half. And, of course, there have been others who tried and failed, like EOS Airlines, MaxJet, Silverjet. They had all collapsed by 2008. And the fourth one, L'Avion, was sold to British Airways. So, bit of a mixed bag. And Jay is obviously not going to be quick to jump on board of that flight, not until he does his homework, right?
Absolutely not. Especially with you could get sticker shock.
Oh, yes. And I'll go ahead and send it back over to you, Jake.
All right. Thank you very much, Corey. Corey Evan with the business news tonight. All right. Now time for the D.C. news tonight. And we start off tonight with the White House seeking to temper optimism about a seemingly intimate nuclear deal with Iran today, warning that some difficult issues are yet to be resolved. According to White House spokesman and BS artist Josh Earnest, he said, quote, "In the mindset of the president, the odds have not moved," warning that at best it is a 50-50 proposition. The administration reacted coolly to the confidence of Iran's nuclear chief Ali al-Shahi, who is quoted as saying that 90% of the technical issues have been agreed on. The president is driving a very hard bargain, and Iran is going to have to make some very tough and specific commitments continued Ernest. The White House said that it remained to be seen if Iranian leaders, including those not directly involved in negotiations, would sign on to the agreement. From our vantage point, it is difficult to predict, Ernest said. That is an X factor. Ernest also said that there had been substantial progress over the course of the last year, but as they encountered stumbling blocks, they just delayed them to the end. Some of the most difficult issues, some of the issues they have been struggling with for the longest period of time, are the issues that have yet to be resolved. The agreement would limit Tehran's nuclear program for 10 to 15 years in return for sanctions relief. And God help us if this bill is passed or these talks end up going through. So I do not believe in this journalist's opinion that this deal is a good deal for America. All right, moving on tonight, President Obama's bid for a new trade deal didn't get any easier today when the House's top Democrat said her caucus embraces a dozen demands that may be tough to meet. That came from House Democratic Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, as she always walked a careful line on trade issues. She is close to many liberals who strongly oppose new trade pacts. She often talks of finding a path to yes, and notes that often that John F. Kennedy called Democrats the party of free trade. After House Democrats privately discussed trade Tuesday, a reporter asked Pelosi if the caucus backed those 12 proposals she cited earlier, or demands issued by Representative Sander Levin of Michigan, who had challenged the administration on several fronts. She responded, quote, "Generally, I would say yes, but some Democrats will have other questions. But Levin's 8-page list is a solid book of concerns that members have." The more tightly lit Pelosi links herself to Levin on trade. The more worrisome is for those seeking a new 12-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership, or also known as the TPP. Those supporters include Obama and many business groups and Republicans that historically support free trade agreements. Opposing them are numerous labor unions, environmental groups, liberals, and scores of House Democrats. They say free trade agreements hurt U.S. jobs and enable foreign countries to abuse workers and the environment. After years of negotiations with Japan, Canada, and other Pacific Rim nations, Obama's team hopes to win congressional approval for the deal later this year. First, the administration will seek fast-track approval or trade promotion authority. Such authority, which previously presidents have enjoyed, allows Congress to approve or reject but not amend major trade proposals. The White House has been pushing back against critics, though, reaching out to some traditional foes of such agreements to make its case. On Monday, the White House political director David Seamus addressed liberal groups in a teleconference call. He said the new deals would help American workers by lowering overseas trade barriers by ensuring that labor and environmental standards are enforced. Oh, great. Now we're going to be in charge of enforcing environmental standards of global socialism in other countries. Just like we have enough time to tell people that they have to use corn, ethanol, to put gas in their tanks. What a load of baloney.
Yes. Even though it would smell like popcorn around here a lot more, at the same time, I'd eventually grow tired of it. But that's all besides the point. The point is, we're trying to strike a balance here between our desire for human progress and the other side's desire to save the world. But I believe that when it comes to the world, I believe God will send his son back to the earth whenever he feels we're ready for it. Or whenever it's most necessary. But of course
That's just your opinion. Religious beliefs out of the way. Time for our next DC story. The House Republicans lodged a boldly conservative 10-year budget plan on Tuesday that would favor the Pentagon, partially privatize Medicare, and rely on deep cuts in other social programs to help wipe out deficits at the end of a decade. A little more than 4 months after winning what they consider their largest majority in 70 years, Republicans promised an overhaul of the federal tax code and called for repeal of two of the top legislative achievements of President Obama's tenure in office. Of course, that being Obamacare and a measure enacted to crack down on Wall Street after the economy economy collapsed back in 2008. Republicans said their balanced budget promises came with no tax increases, though the fine print assumes the expiration of about $900 billion in breaks for business, research, and development and other items. The new normal of slow economic growth and low expectations is unacceptable. We know we can do better, said the House Budget Committee chaired by Representative Tom Price of Georgia in a report accompanying the proposal. It promised greater prosperity, opportunity, security, and freedom if enacted. Projected spending for the budget year that begins on October 1st of this year was $3.8 trillion, raising to $5 trillion in the year 2025. Obama countered Republican claims instantly, saying that the GOP prescription is, quote, a failure to invest in education, known as Common Core, in this newsman's opinion, infrastructure, and national defense. Oh, great, more amnesty. That's my opinion. All things we need to grow, to create jobs, to stay at the forefront of innovation, and to keep our country safe. Sounds like a little more than me in that little quote response.
Yes, that's about right, Jay.
Certainly right. All right, finally to wrap up on tonight's D.C. news. Corey, remember the guy who decided to use taxpayer dollars to decorate his congressional office like the likes of Downton Abbey?
Oh, yes.
Well, apparently Representative Aaron Schnock is resigning after questions over his use of campaign and public funds. Mr. Schnock, 33, is under fire for his lavish spending using public funds on donor-provided private flights and property transactions involving political contributions. A congressional ethics investigation was already underway. The Republican from Illinois had served in Congress since 2009. In a statement, Mr. Schnock said he would step down from his post on March 31st, that's later this month, and was doing so with a heavy heart. Constant questions over the last 6 weeks have proven a great distraction that has made it too difficult for me to serve the people of the 18th District with the high standards that they deserve and which I have set for myself, Mr. Schnock said, according to Politico, which first reported the story today. Mr. Schnock was, of course, the focus of a Washington Post story about his congressional office, which I stated as earlier, was decorated on taxpayer dollars in the style of the popular ITV program in Britain, Downton Abbey. While Mr. Schnock repaid the government the $40,000 for the office renovations, it was the first in a series of increasingly serious headlines about his spending of public and campaign funds. John Boehner, Speaker of the House, said, quote, in response to Mr. Schnock's resignation, quote, he has put the best interest of his constituents and the House first. I appreciate Aaron's years of service, and I wish him well in the future. And, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, it's now time for tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Yeah. Sit, people. We got some stories to get to here. Citigroup and Barclays are close to settling as early as this week a lawsuit with private investors who say the banks manipulated foreign exchange rates, the Wall Street Journal said. The two banks are expected to pay as much as $800 million in the settlement, the Daily said, citing people close to the situation. Barclays decided not to comment, and Citigroup could not be immediately reached. J.P. Morgan Chase and Company agreed to pay about $100 million to settle the same lawsuit in January, and UBS AG agreed to pay $135 million last week. A lot of money changing hands there. Investors, including hedge funds and public pension funds, accused 12 banks of having conspired since January of 2003 in chat rooms, instant messages, and emails to manipulate the WM Reuters closing spot rate. Next up, a Conway company is suing Baxter County Judge Nikki Pendergrass and the Baxter County Airport commissioners for allegedly violating a lease and refusing to move out of an airport building. This, according to the Baxter Bulletin. Aerial Surveys Incorporated says in the suit that the company and airport entered into a 50-year lease on September 22nd, 1994, covering two buildings of Ozark Regional Airport, formerly Baxter County. Regional Airport. In 2007, after the Airport Commission Senate wanted to buy back both leases, the commission paid $144,000 to satisfy one. The next year, the company says it entered into an agreement with the Airport Commission regarding the second building. That agreement said that the airport was allowed to use and possess the building in exchange for aerial surveys, not having to pay rent, as the airport looked to fund buying back the lease according to the lawsuit. The company didn't pay rent from March 2008 to December 2009, the suit says. That's a long time to not pay your rent. But we will keep an eye on that particular one out of Ozark, and I'll let you know if there are any updates. And from CBS Los Angeles, the family of the 63-year-old victim who was killed by a homeless man abandoned their lawsuit against the city of Long Beach on Tuesday. According to police, Jerry Payne was burned to death on April 14, 2013 in his Toyota 4Runner, parked in front of a 7-Eleven convenience store on the 5100 block of Pacific Coast Highway after 38-year-old Raymond Sean Clark threw a flammable device into the vehicle. Payne was transported in critical condition to a hospital for treatment of severe burns over most of his body. Several days later, officials pronounced him dead at hospital. Clark was arrested about a block away from the crime scene, police added. He was charged with capital murder on April 16, 2013, where he pled not guilty to one count each of murder and arson, causing great bodily injury, the Long Beach City Attorney's Office added. Payne's relatives filed a suit against the city of Long Beach and claimed the city failed to provide adequate protection against the dangerous propensities of local transients, vagrants, and panhandlers, according to authorities. The city attorney's office immediately filed a motion to dismiss the case and argued that California law protected them from being held legally responsible for random acts of violence. The attorneys who represented Payne's family agreed to dismiss the case against the city just days before they were scheduled to appear in court. The motive for the attack remains unknown, but I'm sure God knows the whole detail. Just saying. And on that note, it's time to declare today's lawsuits across America case dismissed. And now, on to my favorite time of the day, entertainment. In a surprise move, Nintendo plans to put games on mobile devices in a tie-up with Japanese mobile gaming giant DeNA. That's D-E-N-A, for those of you trying to figure out how to spell that. This is going to PC World. The alliance, which involves the two companies holding stakes in each other, will focus on building apps for smart devices and setting up a worldwide membership service to launch this fall, the company said. This was Tuesday at a hastily arranged press conference in Tokyo. Nintendo was keen to emphasize it is not abandoning consoles. Thank goodness, because between me and my Jenny, we've got just about every console except for the Wii U. But they are indeed moving forward with console codenamed NX, with details to come next year. The new apps for the partnership will include iconic Nintendo characters, but will not involve porting games developed for the Wii U or 3DS system. Only new games will be created, the company said. So hopefully they'll remember Super Mario and his trusty steed Yoshi Sword. Two words you don't normally find in the same sentence are zombie and delightful. Yet the CW's new series iZombie, which premieres tonight at 9 p.m., is a cheeky mashup of police procedural, screwball comedy, and horror parody with lots of heart and brains. This from NJ.com. Based on characters from the DC Vertigo comic of the same name, iZombie has been brought to the small screen by the folks behind Veronica Mars, one of Jay's favorites. There's certainly a pluckiness about Olivia Liv Moore, the happily affiant type A medical resident turned high-functioning but ennui-filled zombie that calls to mind both the teen detective and the supernatural crime fighter known as Saki. Liv manages to hide her nearly dead status by adopting a goth persona. To resist the urge to consume her loved one, she retreats from family, friends, and her dreamy fiancé, Major Lillywhite. And she satisfies her cravings by taking a job at the Seattle morgue, where her secret is uncovered by her keenly curious and surprisingly non-judgmental medical examiner boss, Ravi Chakravarti, who believes he can find a cure for Liv's condition. Yeah, I'm sure Jay has already got a very wet appetite for this one. So, 9 p.m., Jay, over on the CW. And Lionsgate is hoping that Shailene Woodley's higher profile and the continued popularity of Veronica Roth's books will bolster revenues for Insurgent, the sequel to last spring's futuristic adventure Divergent. pre-release tracking suggests that the Lionsgate release will enjoy a modest bump over the $54.6 million debut of its predecessor, Jay. So, you've seen Divergent, so what are your thoughts on Insurgent?
Sounds like it's going to be an interesting film, to be sure. I have seen the first one. The first one was good, but you know how movie companies are with sequels. Sometimes the sequel wasn't as great as the first one, so we will see what happens.
Absolutely, and that's what I've got for entertainment. Jay, take it away.
Thank you very much, Corey. And a reminder of our main news this evening. The victory for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party could mean a fourth term for the veteran in Israeli politics, and it is still too close to call when it comes to who's going to be the controlling party. Stay with the Evan Miller Report for the latest on this on our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Evan Miller Report. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan Miller Report for this Tuesday, March the 17th, 2015. Coming next, the National Weather Forecast with the Met Office, Philip Avery from BBC World. After that, the Exceptional Conservative Show with Tim Clinton here on the SHR Media Networks. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report, Twitter @EM Radio Report. You'll be glad you did. For all of us here at SHR Media, we thank you for listening to this edition of The Evan Miller Report. Tune in again tomorrow for our next report, and we will see you then.
Good night, everybody.
Hello, that time we had a quick look on how the weather's going to affect the whole of Canada and the USA in the next 2 or 3 days or so. Interesting satellite picture. This great strip of cloud, in essence, marks the boundary between warm air in the south, relatively cold air further north. And where those two meet, that's often where you get the weather front, yes. But given the juxtaposition of such cold air and such relatively warm air, there is the prospect, can you believe it? Yes, of further snow in 1 or 2 locations. And that boundary is going to be there for a while. Once it sinks its way a little bit further south across the northeastern corner of the States, the temperatures are set to dip as early as Wednesday. There's something of a lull in proceedings for the western shores of Canada, clouding up later in the day. We've got the next set of weather fronts moving in from the North Pacific. Pacific Northwest of the USA, fine and dry. Still a lot of warmth across the southwest and some rain through the Texas area, and we'll come back to that in just a second. Now, look at those temperatures there, just falling away like a stone, having been at 12 or so, 13 maybe for the New York area, more like 3 degrees, 37 degrees Fahrenheit as we move into Wednesday. And having dipped, there they will stay. And then as we move into the latter part of the week, well, we're going to bring that moisture out of Texas, push it into that cold air, and yes, there will be more snow. And I was talking about those fronts. There they come into Vancouver for the tail end of the week.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.